How can a wrong turn change the world? I mean, it sounds like something straight out of a movie plot, right? But what if I told you that sometimes a single unplanned detour on a random city street is all it takes to literally redraw the map of the entire globe and kick off a catastrophe that claims millions of lives? So let's set the scene. It's a sunny summer day in Sarajevo. You've got an open-top car rolling down the street with a royal couple inside, waving to the crowds. And then, bang, bang, 2 gunshots. And those 2 shots, they would echo for the next 100 years. And here's the crazy part. The person who fired those shots wasn't some master spy or a battle-hardened soldier. No, he was a 19-year-old student named Gavrilo Princip. And this is the unbelievable story of how he found himself in exactly the right place at exactly the wrong time. Honestly, the events of that day are a masterclass in just pure chaos and dumb luck. The plan to assassinate Archduke Franz Ferdinand, by all accounts, it was a total mess, a failure right from the get-go. Okay, so picture this. They had a team of 6 assassins lined up along the motorcade route. The first guy gets his chance and he chucks a grenade. But here's the thing. It had a 10-second delay, so it just bounces off the Archduke's car, rolls under the next car, and boom, it explodes, injuring a bunch of people. The motorcade floors it, speeding right past the other assassins, including a dejected Gavrilo Princip. As far as anyone was concerned, the mission was a complete bust. So after all that chaos, the Archduke gives a speech at town hall. Then he decides to change the route to go visit the people who were wounded by the bomb. A noble thought, right? But here's the crucial mistake. In all the confusion, nobody told the driver about the new route. So the driver, just following the original, now totally useless plan, makes a turn directly onto the street where Gavrilo Princip was standing, having completely given up. Realizing the mistake, the driver slams on the brakes and tries to throw the car into reverse. And then, at that exact moment, the engine stalls. The gears just lock up. The Archduke's car is a sitting duck, and it's stalled less than 6 feet away from an assassin who cannot believe his luck. The rest, as they say, is history. So, this begs the question, who was this teenager? I mean, what turns a kid into a world-changing assassin? To figure that out, we've got to go back to his beginnings, to a world that was a million miles away from imperial motorcades. Gavrilo Princip came from, well, basically nothing. He was born into crushing poverty in this tiny, remote village. His parents were peasant farmers, pretty much serfs, living on a little plot of land, always under the thumb of their landlords. We're talking the opposite of a privileged life here. 6. What does that number mean? Well, Princip was one of 9 children. 6 of his brothers and sisters died in infancy. Can you imagine? That kind of constant hardship and loss? That was just the wallpaper of his entire childhood. When he was 13, he was sent to the capital, Sarajevo, for a better life and an education. And it was there, in the big city, that this quiet kid from the countryside started to change. He started absorbing all these radical new ideas that were just buzzing in the air: nationalism, anarchism, and this burning desire for independence. Okay, so he's becoming politically aware. But that's one thing. How do you go from that to becoming an actual assassin? Well, that's a whole other journey. In Sarajevo, Princip fell in with a secret society called Young Bosnia. And this group was really interesting. It wasn't just a Serb thing. Its members included Serbs, Croats, and Muslims. They were all brought together by one single powerful idea: to liberate the South Slavs from Austro-Hungarian rule and create their own new nation, a Yugoslavia. But his path wasn't a straight line. Get this, during the Balkan Wars, he actually tried to volunteer for the Serbian army. He was rejected. The reason? He was too small and weak. Some historians think that this one moment of humiliation just lit a fire in him, this powerful need to prove his worth. So if the official army didn't want him, fine. He would find another way. He fell in with a circle of revolutionaries in Belgrade, other angry young men who shared his vision. And that's where the plot was hatched. Their target, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne. Their arsenal was supplied by another secret society known as the Black Hand, and it was deadly serious. We're talking pistols, grenades, and cyanide capsules. They were on a suicide mission and had no expectation of surviving. And they didn't, not really. But the consequences of Princip's 2 little shots would outlive them all. sparking a fire that would end up consuming the entire continent.
Princip was arrested right on the spot. At his trial, he was found guilty of murder and treason. But under Habsburg law, you had to be 20 years old to face the death penalty. Princip was just 19 years and 11 months old. He was spared execution by just 27 days and was sentenced to 20 years instead.
So while Princip was in court, the world outside was unraveling with terrifying speed. Austria-Hungary was determined to punish Serbia and issued an impossible ultimatum. On July 28th, exactly 1 month after the assassination, they declared war. A whole web of alliances kicked in, and in just over a month, the great powers of Europe were all marching to battle.
And Gavrilo Princip? He never saw the world he had created. He was sent to the brutal Terezin fortress and held in solitary confinement. Ravaged by tuberculosis and malnutrition, he died in April 1918, just months before the war's end, weighing a mere 88 pounds.
But his story didn't end with his death. In the century since, his legacy has been fiercely debated. So what was he? A hero who fought for freedom, or a terrorist who brought on a global disaster? Well, the answer depends entirely on who you ask. For many Serbs, he is still a national hero, a freedom fighter who struck a blow against an oppressive empire. But for many Croats and Bosniaks, he's seen as a nationalist terrorist whose actions destroyed what they call a golden era and led to unimaginable suffering. And you can literally see this division carved into the landscape itself. In Belgrade, a heroic bronze statue of Princip stands proudly in a park. But in Sarajevo, at the site of the assassination, there's just a simple, neutral plaque stating the basic facts of what happened there.
Perhaps the clearest view into his motives comes from his own words. At his trial, he declared, "I am a Yugoslav nationalist, aiming for the unification of all Yugoslavs. It must be free from Austria." In his mind, his act was for liberation, not for ethnic domination.
So we're left with this question. More than 100 years later, the story of Gavrilo Princip is still being written and rewritten. Was he a spark, a trigger, a hero, a villain? It just reminds us that when we look at the past, the final word is never truly final.